Welcome to Parents Tool Talk Radio with your host, Jody Johnston Powell, licensed social worker, certified family life educator, second-generation parent educator, and author of the award-winning book, The Parents Tool Shop, the universal blueprint for building a healthy family. For over 25 years, Jody has been training parents and family service professionals nationwide and serving as a parenting expert to the media worldwide. Now, through the Parents Tool Talk show, Jody shares her practical advice and introduces you to other experts who can give you proven, effective advice on the issues that matter most to parents. So get ready to be informed, entertained, and enlightened as we join Jody now.
So hi, everybody. Welcome to Parents Tool Talk. And we are in the midst of our pandemic, parenting through the pandemic. It has a variety of names. I keep calling it different things depending on what time of the year we are. Here in Ohio, we're heading into summer. It's June, and so school is out. And now we're starting to kind of take a look at what summer's going to be. And we've also had quite a lot of other things happening in the midst of the pandemic. And so this is an opportunity for us to just kind of come together and talk about what's going on and what each of us is experiencing, because I think everyone's experience is really different sometimes. And we never know what's going to happen from day to day. So we've talked the last couple of months about resilience and risk factors that can stretch us, and sometimes to the point we feel like we're going to break, and how protective factors can help ease those risk factors. And so we've just been kind of talking in general about all the various kinds of issues that the pandemic has brought about in terms of employment and childcare and working from home or having kids from home and all of that, schooling, homework, being your child's teacher. And now we're kind of heading into reentry, and depending upon where you are, this is open to all parents everywhere, even globally. So I'm based in Ohio, but I don't want to assume that everybody else is, or even within Ohio, that your experience is what mine has been. So I just want to do a check-in today, and I'd really like to, I'm always wanting to custom design things, and this time, because I wasn't real sure kind of what was going to be going on when we got to June, I don't have like a whole presentation plan that I'm going to talk the whole time. I really wanted to check in with folks and find out what kinds of issues are you dealing with. The handout, I will look up the handout and put that link in there again, because I've kept it updated. It hasn't changed from last time, but it just occurred to me, not all of you may have had that. So I will look that up as we're doing some introductions. And share that. So there's lots of resources, and I'm always open to getting more so I can share more. And like I said, we've had lots of stuff going on, and all of our talk today is going to be around our role as parents. So, you know, kind of how do we raise children during the pandemic and during reentry, and there's been lots of other things that have been going on. And so if you want, we can get into those topics also, and we almost definitely will get into those in our second webinar of each month, which focuses on more kind of the serious side of topics and parenting, where we talk about children, parenting children who have a trauma history, who may have special needs. And I think this month we may be taking a look at how to talk to our kids about social justice and some of the racial issues that are affecting everybody. So I think we'll have a more focused conversation on that in a couple of weeks. And my summer co-parenting partner, Emily Ragland, is unable to be with us today. And so she may share with you why that is in a couple of weeks when she's the primary co-host and facilitator. So for right now, let me check in with Michelle. Michelle, are you able to come off mute and you can kind of say hello and give a check-in? Let me know how you're doing and what you'd like to discuss today. Didn't get a chance to check your audio before. Are you there? Oh, actually, also.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good. I am here. I am currently on a bike ride, trying to listen in through a bike ride.
Okay. I won't call on you to talk a whole lot then.
Yeah, we're just staying home a lot. So we're not ones that are ready to go out and start mingling yet. So,
Okay.
and I think I'm going to stay that way for quite a while, actually.
Okay. And are you in Ohio?
We are in the northern suburbs of Chicago.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that, because it does matter where you are right now, because every state is kind of a little bit different.
For sure.
But it's great to hear that you're outside and that you're riding a bike, and that's one of the things I've been grateful for, is that we can get outside. And when we are outside, we can do things as a family.
Yes.
Yeah.
And with family, spending lots more time with family has been great for us. So we really enjoyed it, actually.
Good. And just give me a quick status where you're at in terms of employment. Are you two parents? Are you both working from home still, or kind of what's going on employment wise for you all in terms of kids being home and you all being home?
We homeschool. So
okay.
My son is just finished his freshman year actually at a public high school, which was the first time he went to school since first grade. So for him, coming back home was kind of just back to normal. So that was okay. My husband works, he's been working from home. I'm not working because I'm doing the homeschooling help facilitating. So I'm kind of, that's my job right now.
Great. So you're always home full time, which is helpful.
Yes.
Because then you didn't have a big transition, but your husband's still home?
He's still home. Starting next week, I think it is, or the week after, they're supposed to be starting to go back to work. They've divided everybody into 3 groups, and each group will go in on a rotating basis for 1 week and then work from home for 2 weeks.
Oh, great.
So to me, it's scary. Kind of, I think of that as kind of a human experiment. Like, let's have you come in for a week and see if you get sick and stay home for 2 weeks. And if you don't get sick, you can come back. So,
that does kind of work out that way, doesn't it? It's like and then almost like quarantine for 2 weeks.
Exactly. So
yeah, they're just not calling it that, but you're seeing it that way.
Yeah, it's a little, I mean, I tend to be a little more cautious on this stuff. I mean, I know a lot of people aren't, but I know everybody has to do their own thing. So but they have to get back to work too. So it's kind of, you have to go for it.
And that's kind of what we want to talk about today, is kind of how we all are feeling about that and respecting where each other is and how to keep our family safe, or to respect what we want to do with our family, even when those around us are not. So we'll kind of talk about that. And so if I'll let you catch your breath, I'm going to check in with Cheryl. We actually have almost 20 people registered, and I don't know if everyone's going to come or not. It is a gorgeous day in a lot of places, so I don't know. But let me check in with Cheryl, and you can catch your breath. And I won't call on you, Michelle, but I do want you to feel free to just come off and share or whatever as we go through, because I'm not doing a one-directional pre-planned presentation today. I really wanted to check in with folks and kind of custom design things. So great. Well, Cheryl, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. Tell me how things are. Tell me where your neck of the woods is, and then how things are there.
We are in Ohio, southern, central Ohio, Zanesville.
Okay.
So,
are you in the more rural part of Zanesville, or out kind of in the country, or more in the city?
We live in the country.
Okay.
Work in the city.
Okay. And so how are things there?
Good. We just started coming back to work, just a couple of us in our agency.
Okay.
Just a few days a week, and then still working from home the other days.
Okay. Now, are you a caseworker?
I'm a family stability worker.
Family stability worker. Okay. Because I was going to say, I know a lot of the caseworkers and other protective service professionals have been kind of doing mostly from home, and some of them are going in. And so, but when you described it, it sounded similar to some of what some of the other.
I work alongside the caseworkers. Yes.
Okay. Great. Great. And so, what kinds of issues are you seeing now? So you are now. So are your kids school age?
They were. We had foster placement, and they actually went home yesterday.
Really? Okay. Yeah. So how are you doing?
We're doing well.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And actually, with you going back to going back to work, one of the issues that's been a big issue has been childcare, which that would be something Michelle's dealing with. And now that were those the only children that you had, the foster placement?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. We have adult children, so
okay. Yeah. So that actually might give you kind of okay, now we can focus on this, and you'll kind of know more what the situation is if you get the opportunity for a placement. You'll at least know what things are. I think that's been one of the big challenges, right? Is that we haven't known, right? Yeah, everything's been up in the air. So great. Anything in particular that you would want to discuss or get support around today?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. I see Lois here. Just let's see, Michelle, I know you're riding a bike. At some point, do you want to come up and let me know, do you want a certificate for today?
Yes.
Okay. So Cheryl wants a certificate. Michelle, do you want one?
I don't need one. I'm just joining for fun. So
okay,
for fun and interest.
Okay, great. And Lois, good morning. Actually, good afternoon. So how are you? We're just kind of doing a check-in, finding out what neck of the woods you are living in right now and what is happening there. We're all kind of at different phases of re-entry. We've got folks from different states. So check in and let us know how you're doing. I know you just came on, so I'm hoping that your audio you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yes.
There you
Okay.
go.
I'm not muted now.
Hi, Lois.
Hi. I work for Child Development Resources in Williamsburg, Virginia. I happen to be on vacation this week, so I'm not anywhere close to, but we're working from home anyway. So I think that I would like a certificate if possible.
Sure. That's fine. So in Virginia, what are things like in Virginia in terms of, are you guys kind of coming out of, are you starting in the reentry phase and what's kind of your situation?
On Friday, we entered phase 2, which just means a little bit more openness.
Okay.
We at our work, we are not going into the building. We're doing everything virtually. So I'm a parent group facilitator. So I'm learning how to do groups on Zoom.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, hey.
Yeah, that's
There
right.
you go.
I'll be watching closely and see what I can learn from you.
Okay, and I don't have as much planned. I can show you some of what I have planned, what I've done in the past couple of months, where I had more of a PowerPoint and I had some more of a one-directional presentation. Honestly, and I kind of said this in the beginning for folks, I wasn't sure what we were going to be talking about in June because I wasn't sure what was going to be happening in June. So that's kind of why I just left it a little bit more open-ended and wanted to be able to give people some support. And I can address whatever you are interested in addressing today and discussing. One of the things I really wanted to talk about today was kind of as how do we, especially as parents, and so Lois, do you have children still? Or do
I have young adults. I have young adults and
young adults. Okay.
Two grandchildren.
Okay. And what are their ages?
They are 3 and 1.
Oh, are they local for you?
They're about an hour away.
Okay.
So pretty local, yeah.
Okay. Have you seen them at all, or just still doing
not
video?
Not much. We saw them once or twice. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. That's the only exception I had been making. Not throughout. I mean, I didn't see them for a good full 2 months, but that was kind of my first group.
Right.
Kind of like outside, my husband and I are herd because I have all adult children now too and grandchildren. And I'm a very involved grandma. And so that was kind of, and with social distancing and all of that. And I actually ventured out. There was a commitment to something that I had already committed to that involved travel. And so I actually flew on a plane Thursday and Sunday. So that was a big deal for me. And I talked with the other people that I was traveling with before we traveled, because I didn't want to be odd man out if I was going to be more cautious than they were. So I think, maybe it was good that I did that and kind of saw a little bit more kind of what's going on out there. Right. So I can report whatever you want me to report, but I had a variety of experience, that there was the airplane and airport kind of thing. There was we were staying obviously not with someone. So there was kind of the whole eating, like where do you get food? And then there was just kind of outdoor stuff. And so generally speaking on the outdoor stuff, We didn't wear masks as much. It was easier to social distance. It wasn't any kind of crowding thing. I've not been in any protests. I've not been in any standing in line at bars kind of things. We didn't do any of that. I don't know that I would anyway. I'm a little bit, if something can turn, if there can be lots of drunks or violence, I generally tend to keep my distance from those settings,
Right.
and get involved in other ways that aren't as risky. But yeah, I was concerned, and so I had to have some of those kinds of discussions with people who weren't part of my family about how comfortable do you feel about this, and how are we going to handle this, and how are we going to handle that. And fortunately, most of us were on the same page, and whenever things came up, we would just kind of check with each other, or we're free to say, I don't feel comfortable with that, and the others would respect that. So I feel grateful that the people I went with were like that, because I know not everybody is. And so when you encounter folks who aren't, I think that can kind of be where maybe we can talk today about, like, how do we, in preparation for heading out, what kind of conversations might you want to have with your children? What might those sound like? I mostly want to focus more on process than content, because I don't want to impose upon anybody here what you would be telling them in terms of, we're going to do this, we're not going to do that, here's what, because I think each family needs to make their own decision for that. And everything that we have been told, I don't think hardly anything has been a mandate. So it's not like we're going to be breaking the law to go outside without a mask on, but yet they've been recommendations. And what I'm hearing from most of the folks who are on this call is that we appreciate the efforts, and that we want to stay safe and honor a lot of those recommendations, but we also recognize a lot of other people aren't. I did go to a doctor's office for the first time today since COVID started to see my chiropractor, because last time that my friends and I went to this place, I was the host, and so I got the master bedroom, and this time I got the sofa bed, and I really wouldn't even call it a bed. It was kind of like a pull-out bunch of wires. So I really needed to see my chiropractor when I came back, and was really shocked, surprised. All the patients were wearing masks. No one in the chiropractor, none of the staff in the chiropractor's office were wearing masks. And when I made a comment that related to wearing masks, I kind of got a lecture, and was rather surprised that my chiropractor didn't see any value in social distancing and this and that. So came home, had a conversation with my husband. So there have been times where I've been really kind of shocked, and then other times where, everybody's kind of doing their thing. How are we going to stay safe? And actually, I did, when I came back, I went back and visited with my grandchildren and my daughter last night. We mostly stayed outside, but I had gifts for the kids. And my granddaughter was so cute. I gave her one of those scarves that you can kind of pull up. And she loved it. She thought that was great, because even though she'd gotten a special mask that was child-sized, she kind of liked that it was a fashion thing, and she could put it in her hair. She could, put it up over her nose. So she kind of liked that it didn't look like a mask, but it was. And it's not going to be, if she's in a really high risk, they should put a mask on. But this is kind of more, one or two layers, kind of thing. And when I went to go leave, I said, you want to put up masks and give a hug with our heads to the side. She goes, nope, fist bump's good. Stay at 6 feet. So, and she's 6. So I thought that was good. I was actually kind of, willing, well, maybe if we turn our heads this way, we could, or I kiss the baby hit the top of his head, but, I'm making sure that our faces don't, for the most part, I'm not even picking them up. So it's kind of, this reentry thing is kind of tricky, because it's like, if you re-enter, it's like, how do you make those calls? One resource I do want to share with you today, and I will pull it up and I will share it on my screen for a little bit here. So hold on, let me do where's my share screen? Oh, it's only lit up in green. So let me pull this window open. Let me figure out which window it is first. it is this article. Okay, so that's what I want to share. And I thought we might just kind of use this article as a guide for our discussion. So this is an article, it's just written by an individual, but what I like about it is because, and you can read more about the author in the back. Oh, here, actually, let me do this. Let me copy and paste this into the chat real quick. Hold on, let me see if I can get to the chat while I'm in here. Chat. Is it not going to let me? I don't think it's letting me see my chat. Ow. Here we go. Let me move it over. Here. Okay, hold on. Let me get the, I apologize. Here we go. There's the link in the chat if you want to take a look at it. I might create a shorter link and I can put a link to this in the recording. What I liked about this, and I'm not going to read it at you, but what I liked about this is that it kind of took a look at a couple of different issues that when you need to make a decision or you need to assess the risk of a situation, we've been talking the last couple of months, we've kind of been using the whole resilience and risk factors and protective factors and how, risk factors stretch you. The more resilience you have, the more you can stretch without breaking, and protective factors are what help you stretch. And protective factors are things like family and faith and support and things like that. And so as we head out, first of all, we want to arm ourselves with facts. And I know there can be lots of debates about what are facts and what aren't facts. And facts are facts. You can interpret them differently. You can value them differently. But one of the things that, and the fact that everyone, at least who is present live on this call, the fact that you're being careful means that you do value factual scientific information, and that if you're going to err on any side, most of us are erring on the side of caution. I know I probably am the biggest risk taker in this group today just because I went ahead and took that trip and have actually seen my grandkids. And at the same time, I've been doing it really carefully. So this was an article, actually, all of us who went on this trip read this, and I received this from someone that I'm in a support group with, who we support other folks that are doing online businesses and stuff. And a couple of the key things, is this formula of, there's a couple of key factors. One has to do with how much you are exposed, how long you're exposed, and factors like how much ventilation is there. So, for example, when you are going into a bathroom, you've got the issue of you're not in there for a long duration, but there could be, if they're not keeping it clean or you don't know, and this is why a lot of public restrooms in Ohio still are not open, they may not be clean, so they may be very high risk, and there's no ventilation, so that increased the risk, but you're only in there for a short period of time, and as long as you're careful about what you touch and you wash your hands on the way out, you might be able to counter that. Whereas being, I guess, at a doctor's office for an hour, talking with someone face-to-face without any masks, and if they did happen to be one of those asymptomatic folks, carriers, you could be exposed for a prolonged period of time in an enclosed room. Going out to the beach, as long as your group can be, that you've been quarantined with, or your family, or that they've been quarantined maybe, because the people I went with came from other families, but all of us had been quarantining for the 2 months. When it came time, they wanted to sit our chairs close together, which I wanted our chairs even a little bit more spread out. And then I wanted to have more than 6 feet from kind of where our little circle, our little space was on the beach. I wanted to have the other umbrellas that were being set up. We rented some umbrellas that were being set up farther than that. And the people that did that, I had specifically asked for that, and it really still wasn't as far away as I preferred. And I asked for it. My experience is generally, other than that doctor who kind of gave me, the lecture about how this is all being blown out of proportion. Other than that, I've really encountered most people are very respectful. If you want to wear a mask and they aren't, They're respectful if you want to. Like, I've never had anybody, put me down for doing that or whatever. And there have been times where someone else wasn't wearing a mask and said, and I inquired, like, how does this work? And it was like, well, and if, I normally don't, but if you want me to, I will. And I said, I would like for you to. And they did. And I didn't get any flack for it. So I think, kind of like if we can all be mutually respectful, that's great. So I think what my thought in today's topic was, if we can kind of learn like this formula kind of thing, and I'm not just kind of in generic, not necessarily memorizing this particular person's formula and that's the be all and end all, but kind of like, as we head back out, both for ourselves as well as for our children, we've got to make decisions. And if our children are older and are going to be going out, and I believe that it was Michelle who said that she had the 9th grader, he's been in public school, and now, he may at some point in the summer maybe want to do something with another friend, or go someplace or do something, or say the pools are opening. And yeah, when you're in the water and there's the chlorine, that part of it is going to like kill anything on your body. But if you're still closer than 6 feet, do you know who you're closer than 6 feet to without a mask? You're probably not going to wear a mask in the pool. So like you start getting into all of these really what could be complicated or unclear. There's no clear yes, no's here. And so that's why I thought it would be helpful for us to talk about, like, how do you assess risk? How do you make decisions? How do you have those conversations with your children? And so this link is, one that if you want to go read the article for yourself, it gives some facts, but then it also like kind of helps you assess things. So maybe let me just kind of check in with folks, because I don't want to like continue to talk longer than just a couple of minutes, and kind of check out where you all are at in terms of, is this something that you'd like to kind of discuss? And maybe even make a comment on what I've shared so far in terms of, is this kind of on track with about where you are and what you want to talk about? So let me see if I can come back to, I don't know if this is not, how do I see everybody? Here we go. Let me move this over to, so, okay. So would anyone like to come off mute and kind of share? How do you decide? So let me ask this as a question. So how do you decide when it's going to be time to come out and decide where to go and what to do and how to, while there's kind of this opportunity to reentry, are you just going to kind of stay put for now and kind of wait and see? How will you make the decision? So I'd like to hear from some of you. I found this helpful, but maybe some of you kind of have your own ideas, and I'm very open. I really want to learn and I really want to hear, like, how is everybody deciding what they want to do? So I'm not going to call on Michelle because I know she's riding a bike, but if you're at a point you can come off mute.
I paused for a minute.
Okay.
So I'm thinking about a lot of things right now. I think for me personally, I think we'll just keep staying inside as long as we can. We're in phase 3 here, and my impression is that there's a lot of people that don't understand the value or the reason for wearing a mask.
Yeah.
I think I'm seeing, I would say, the majority of people not wearing masks. And so that's, everybody has their own, choices to make. So as long as I'm seeing that, I'm not comfortable with being out and about in stores and restaurants and things like that without people wearing masks. So we're just going to continue doing what we've been doing. And, we carry out food, and we have my husband goes to the grocery store maybe once a week or something. And we just keep doing our thing. We're fine with that. And if people, I've been invited to a couple like patio cocktail hours and stuff. I'm not really comfortable with that either, because the people that invited me have been having lots of those recently, and I'm not sure they're staying 6 feet apart the whole time. So I don't know. That's kind of where I am.
Yeah, I get it. Now, and with your kids, you mentioned you have a 9th grader. What are the ages of your other children?
My daughter's 12.
Okay.
So
you have older children?
I don't. Those are my 2.
Yeah. So, but with them kind of being preteens, and you don't have older teens, but you don't have like toddlers. Like you have
Right. No.
school age kids who may want to ask, get together with friends or whatever. So like process wise, like how would you handle that kind of conversation with them? Because I would imagine that they're at the age where they might question. So how have you handled that?
They are, but they are also comfortable not getting together right now. They're comfortable with Zooming and doing online things with their friends, talking on the phone and things like that. They miss being with their friends, yes, especially my daughter who's 12. But I think they're comfortable and they understand the value in not doing that at this point. So yeah. I haven't had any flack so far.
Good.
So thankfully for that.
Good. And, in terms of like we're always falling back on the Parents Tool Shop curriculum, like the cooperation tool set, the whole thing of rather than making kids do things, of engaging their cooperation. And a phrase that you've used several times is they understand the value behind the rule. They understand the why behind the request. And it doesn't mean you have to spend all your time explaining, but it does help if your children are old enough, especially, to be able to understand. And what's really important about that is that then it's not just with you, Michelle, or with just the family. If they should, at some point, either want to or they get permission from you to, and the thing isn't just that. It's like you said, when you get there, what you expect isn't always what you get. I thought going where we were going to go, there would be tons of outdoor eating options. I was shocked at how few there were. And so, we had to make kind of a snap decision. We said we weren't going to do this. Are we going to do it? And let's take a peek in, and okay, it looks like that, they're doing this and that so we kind of had to make a decision. The great thing about you making sure that your children understand the value is that then they're kind of choosing to not bucket, you know what I mean? It's not that they're just blindly doing what you've helped explain it. So then if they do go outside the family or do something, hopefully, because they do understand it and you've educated them as to how to keep themselves safe, they will carry that rule, they'll carry that value with them wherever they go, so that if other people are doing things that aren't safe, hopefully they will stay safe.
Right. And I think part of this is I have an aunt and a cousin who both ended up in the hospital with COVID. So my aunt made it out. She's 82. She made it out after 10 days. My cousin, who's 53, is still in the hospital after, I think it's been about a month now. She was on a ventilator, just got taken off. She's still struggling, can't move yet, can barely, eat, can barely whisper. It's tough. So, they've heard about that also. So I think that's part of it. Hey, you know what, we better stay safe.
That is, and when it touches you directly, there's astronomically huge numbers. And yes, I'm hearing now that it could have been millions more, but it was still millions, that had been affected by this. And it's real easy for us to just kind of, those are just numbers. Your family has really been more directly. You've really seen it. And that really does drive it home. And it's hard for kids who, don't see that.
Yeah, and I've spoken to other people too, and who have said, in fact, last week, just this one woman at the dance school where my daughter goes, we went to pick up costumes in a drive-by thing, and she said, I'm in kind of denial. I'm just sort of think it's just like the flu, and we've never done anything about the flu. And I said, I was kind of going back and forth on the fence about that until my family members got it, and that kind of drove it home for me,
Yeah.
So
yeah. Yes, this conversation I had with this doctor, and he was never in the history of humanity have they quarantined healthy people. And I'm like, well, there's kind of that asymptomatic carrier factor, that is really different.
And the quarantine factor was to help the hospitals not be inundated with people. I think there's a lack of understanding about the reasons why things have been done. Yeah. And I think that's the bigger problem right now. So
yeah. And where people get their information and who they're discussing it with, and we go into in the foundation building tool set sometimes, and I don't think anybody here is one of the foster parents who's attended any of my workshops that I do for the state live, but there's this one workshop we do, and it's all about how we get our belief systems, and right now we with our children are forming their belief systems. And some of us were told what to believe, or if you don't believe that, like there's something wrong with you. And then
Yeah.
others of us have been taught how to choose our beliefs, you know,
Yes.
and how to think, not what to think. And yeah, so it's when you go out in society, especially on issues like this, and we always avoid religion and politics and all of life, you know, it's, we're humans, we're parents, and we all have a right to have those, whatever our values are. What we all share in common though, is that at some point, I would hope our children are going to be going out there. We can't keep them secluded forever. And so at some point, we do have to help them learn how to make decisions for themselves. So the more we can be doing that, sharing that information, yes, this is a rule, here's why it's a rule. And that's what I'm hearing you saying that you've been able to do. And your children are old enough that you could do that.
I've certainly tried.
Yeah.
That's my goal. So
yeah. So let me hear from either Cheryl or Lois, kind of what kind of conversations and, you know, as we were kind of talking about going through this assessment and reassessment and helping children learn how to assess situations for themselves. What kinds of experiences have you all had with that? And kind of how is the conversation, what's your response so far? And join in the conversation.
I can add my 2 cents.
Thanks, Lois.
We have a circle of parents group that there are 10 or 11 parents that we've been meeting every week. And hearing from them, it has run the entire gamut between those that feel, well, we need to start going, and these all would have young children. So the parents that are saying we're going to be safe, but we're going to go out and start doing a little bit, whatever we can. And then on the far other side, it's some that like, I'm not going anywhere, or I don't want to go anywhere until there's a vaccine, you know, so there's this, a big, huge spread.
Yeah.
I think for me personally, for my husband and I, we're trying to keep it really safe. But we, you know, we've gone and gotten food and, you know, kind of the basics. So we've gone out a little bit, but wearing masks and everything. So I think we're being cautious probably. Yeah. So, and we're glad, we're glad things are opening up a little bit. So yeah, that's good too.
Yeah. Well, and imagine, I mean, I from the beginning of this, I had been so grateful. Just I mentioned this earlier when Michelle said she was out riding her bike, that we're allowed to get outside. Like there are some countries that had a shutdown where you had to stay in your house with your windows closed. So like everybody right now, hallelujah, thank you. Like at least we've been able to get outside. I don't think any state has been put on that kind of a lockdown. And B, just that, that we have technology, we have online, we've got I have only gone into the grocery store once. I started doing the online where you just go to the parking lot and they bring it to your car so you don't have to go in. I've learned how to do that, and I might have to wait 4 days. It's getting more normal now where it's 4 hours, but there was a point at which it was like 4 or 5 days before I could get my food. And so I would just start the list early and keep adding. You know how it is, as soon as you get back to the grocery store, you always find something you missed. So I'd put my order in, and then the next 4 days I'd be remembering things I forgot, and I'd just keep adding them until the night before. So there, thank goodness that we've had those things, because it's make it more doable. And Michelle, I appreciate you reminding us of the reason that we went on lockdown wasn't necessarily, whether you agree or disagree or think there's risk to it, but that it was really to help support and keep down the number of people that were going to emergency rooms and sparing some of the PPE, let's not inundate them. And we all want to get good care if we need it. So I appreciate you reminding us of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that isn't what people are remembering and focusing on.
Yeah, and you were talking about, and we have friends all over Europe. My husband's originally from Germany, and I have friends in Italy and Spain and Germany and Switzerland. And some of those places were, a little bit less lockdown, and others, like in Italy, they couldn't leave their house without a note saying why they had to go out, and it had to be approved before they could go out. There was only one person allowed in the grocery store at a time. You had to wait in line outside. It was horrible. So we're lucky that we weren't as locked down.
Right. Yeah, and it has been so different. So on the one hand, it seems that it's affected everyone in the world. I mean, every country has had something. Some countries, if you're an island, it's easier to contain. If you
Yes.
take quick action, it's earlier to, and we're just so huge, and all of that. So, on the one hand, we have that in common with everyone, but yet, yeah, every place is a little bit different. And so each person is, kind of having to do that. Oh,
Mhm.
thanks, Cheryl. Cheryl typed in it onto the chat. She's at work. She said, we're taking caution in everything and place that we go. Lots of hand sanitizer and masks. It took me months just to even be able to get those. So I didn't go out until I even could get those. We haven't taken the kids anywhere up until they started visits with their grandma. Yeah, I kind of feel like, please, like, let the grandparents be the first ones as long as, masks and social distancing, and hopefully they don't have that's been the hardest thing for me. It's like is not being with my kid, like as long as I have my family. And it reminded me actually of 9/11. My kids were in junior high and high school and on 9/11, and when that happened, it was so hard for me to not just run to the school and grab them and take them home, to wait, for them to come home on the bus. But it was like I just wanted to get my arms around them and keep them home when stuff happens. So even as adults, I'm not going to be overprotective like that, but still it's kind of feeling as though we can still see each other. And, it just doesn't, it's not the same being on video. So I do like, being to a point where we can at least do that. And I told them, since I did travel, I did wear the mask the whole time I was with them. And I probably essentially will be on quarantine for the next 2 weeks. Our in-person classes for the state of Ohio, they're basing it on region. And there's only 2 regions that are even doing anything live. And they're keeping it at, our state hasn't, you're not allowed to meet with 10 or more people yet. So they're keeping the numbers at 9 participants. There's a whole, I have a whole handout thing of all the rules that we have to follow. And I've got to stay 12 feet from the first row, and they've got to be 6 feet, and, all this kind of stuff. And so a lot of our stuff has been online too. So it's not that hard to quarantine, given what we do have. But it's more a matter of how you decide when to go out. My husband's working from home. He hasn't gone out at all. I think there's once or twice he made the grocery run. Maybe only once he went into a grocery store. I've only gone into a grocery store once too. But he, was concerned about me going on the trip. And I appreciated him kind of like that's probably not the right word, but wanting me to be able to explain to him how I was going to stay safe. Because, if I come home and I've picked up something, then that puts him at risk. So we really are very interdependent upon each other. And if we can't really trust or know people well enough to trust that they, have been safe, then you just don't know. So on the one hand, I'm hearing we all want to be safe. For the most part, we're okay continuing on the way we have been. And so when that time comes, or if our children, are wanting to be able to do something, how will we decide on how to do that? So thank you for sharing that. Cheryl says, I've been making our sanitizer, aloe vera, alcohol, and tea tree oil. Well, I haven't heard of that combination. I was having a hard time. What was it? Glycerin. Some of the ingredients I was having a hard time finding. So if you have a recipe for that, and if you have a link to it, if you want to pop that in the chat, that would be great. I finally did get some. I finally ordered from, I think it was Walgreens or CVS or someplace, and had to wait a while, but I finally did get it. But for example, I went to go, I just am very observant. I went to the grocery store to pay. I was in the parking lot, and they come and bring it out. And this was a manager. The manager licks his fingers and then starts to open up the grocery bags to put my groceries in it. And I'm like mortified. So I pull on my plastic gloves. I already had on my mask. And that particular load, like, I threw away the bags. I sanitized every single thing I took, that he had licked his, then he's touching my groceries. So and I'm like, why? If you just been wearing plastic gloves, you wouldn't have had to lick your fingers. You know what I mean? So there's people out there who either aren't aware, and it's not that they're doing anything intentional. They're just not aware. They don't think. And then there's other people who just don't believe, and so they, whatever, So yeah, it's challenging in terms of how to help our kids understand those kinds of issues. The other thing, kind of talking about speaking, and the other thing I think I've been grateful for is that things like church services, a lot of those have been online. And I'm hoping that those continue to be online, even though some of them are opening up, because we're hearing things like singing, speaking. I know, I'll admit it, as the presenter, there have been times I've noticed I accidentally spit while I was talking. So it can happen. So I think that, yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff still out there we just don't know about. So if we can be safe, I think most of the folks here's the thing, most of the folks I talk to, like we're talking, most of the folks I talk to say all the stuff that we are saying here, my friends, my family, all that. And then I go out and I see all these people who I don't talk to, who apparently are having whole different conversations than what I've been having. So I think that when I go out, before I go out, it appears to me, based on my conversations and what I hear, I mean, obviously I see on the news that there are places, everybody sees pictures of people on the beach too close with no masks, people standing in bars in Cincinnati, which is, 40 minutes from me. And it's like, great, we make the national news, for doing the wrong thing. But like, I know that there's those exceptions, but I kind of thought, based on conversation, more people were like us in terms of they were kind of being on the cautious side, until I really started venturing out. And then I'm realizing, the flight down, I would say only about 50% of the people wore a mask. The passengers, the flight attendants, they all wore masks the whole time, and they moved people around a little bit so that if they could free up the middle seat, they would, but not everybody got that. And then on the way back, I'd say about 80% of the people were wearing a mask, and they also kind of did that. Oh, thank you. Cheryl's putting some of the recipe in the chat there. Thank you, Cheryl. I'll copy that out and share that with folks in the follow-up too. So I think that's the thing, is like, on the one hand, we kind of know there's those folks out there, so we're just going to kind of lie low. There's going to come a point, because, we're hearing that we're not going to have a vaccine until probably next calendar year. So there's a good chance sometime between now and then there might be something that we may consider venturing out. So that was kind of why I wanted to share this particular article, and just kind of so we have a way of kind of weighing a situation. And the restaurants, I thought, was the one that was really interesting. I don't know if you guys can see this. Let me zoom in. I think I'm still sharing my screen. Somebody come off mute if I'm not. This was an actual COVID outbreak that happened in a restaurant. And obviously this was back in January, before there was social distancing. But the person here with the yellow, they were the ones that were asymptomatic. And these are all the other people. All the circles were people where there were people sitting. And the ones that have numbers in them and dates are the number of people who contracted COVID from that one asymptomatic person. So restaurants, I think indoor restaurants, especially where you have to have your mask off, I know is considered one of the most risky. What I did observe, and I went to South Carolina, I have not gone into any place in Ohio. The only reason I did, because I had to get food. And we did go to the grocery store, but we had decided one meal a day we would, we wanted to go to Wahlburgers because they have a Wahlburgers there, so we did that carry out, and we sat on a picnic bench and ate it by ourselves. But this was one of the things I noticed, that it was like every other table, and then seating, spreading it out. They had high backed booths. So I think, not going out at all is fine. And when you do, having some way of being able to assess the situation. What I appreciate hearing is that some of you, as you're talking about, as people are going back out or back to work, what kind of efforts the businesses have been making to kind of spread people out and do social distancing and that kind of a thing. Excuse me. So I'm just kind of scrolling through here just so you can see what else is in the article here while we were talking. So I'll share this with you. And then that can also help your kids, decide what they may be doing. I've really been grateful to see all the creative ways people have been connecting and staying in touch, as well as appreciating the businesses that are making the effort to keep people safe, whether it's people who visit their business or people who work in their business. I kind of felt bad for the people who worked at that doctor's office today. If any of them had wanted to wear a mask, I wonder if they would have been shamed into being made to feel. The doctor said something about that he's educated and only like stupid people would believe the hype over this or something like that. And so it's kind of like almost like one of those, so are you saying, some of my husband and I have had a conversation, and this is a person we've seen for decades, but he's getting ready to retire, and we've already talked about maybe moving on. So yeah, that was kind of a interesting experience. So anyway, well, we've got about 10 minutes left. Thank you, Cheryl, for putting your recipe for hand sanitizer in the chat. Folks, you should be able to, well, and Michelle, you probably can't copy and paste that while you're riding a bike. So I will be copying and pasting this.
I'm actually done riding the bike, and I was actually do a screenshot of it. So I've got it. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, okay, great. So I appreciate that. So yeah, so let me check out with you also, because I don't want to open up a can of worms when we've only got 10 minutes, but I only want to open it up in the context to know whether or not we might want to open it fully in 2 weeks, of kind of what's been going on in terms of talking to our kids about, well, let me just share with you my experience. So I'm at this resort. We went there for a class. I went to support my high school friend with something that she did, and I promised her I'd go with her when came back. She's a single person on disability, and I didn't want to bail on her. So that was why I went ahead, because I'd made this commitment and we found a way to do it safe. So there was this little girl that I started talking to, and she was 6 feet away, but we were starting having a conversation about pets and this and that. And kind of out of the blue, she says, well, first she has a little brother, and she says something about she wished her mom wouldn't spank her little brother so much. So that was that we can have a whole other conversation about that another time. So that was an interesting where that conversation went. But then she said, I'm really tired of hearing this Black Lives Matter thing. And I wasn't quite sure, like, what do you mean by that? And I kind of tried to explore it a little bit, like, are you seeing it on TV? Like, do you mean you're tired of seeing it on TV? Or are you, and she, I was having a hard time kind of figuring out, like, or are you saying like they don't? You know what I mean? And so it just made me realize how aware kids are, not only of maybe what they are, or maybe not even seeing it on TV, because she said something about, no, I don't see it on TV that much. My parents don't let me see the TV, but clearly she's picking up on something. Maybe it's the way that her parents are talking or something, but it just makes me realize that it's a conversation. We never back away from hard conversations here at Parents Tool Shop, and I think we're pretty respectful about the way that we do it. And I have a whole section, one little story example topic thing in the big book, the original book, on teaching children about diversity. I don't like the phrase tolerating diversity. I don't think diversity is something to tolerate. I think it's something to appreciate and celebrate. And I think it's wonderful. And I know I and my children, and probably most of you, have done a lot to help teach our children to be respectful of all people. So I'm contemplating whether or not to cover the topic of how to talk to kids about social justice and racial injustice and just equality of justice, of it not necessarily being just about race, but also it is. I mean, clearly it is. So I'm wondering whether or not that's a topic that you think would be appropriate maybe in a couple of weeks on our 4th Tuesday. And I'll obviously talk to the person who I'm going to be co-hosting that with, but I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
This is Lois again. I think that would be a good topic to pick
Okay.
up.
Okay. So I didn't have a lot of time to pre-plan anything, and I think there's some resources. I just didn't. I got back on Sunday, and of course yesterday I was dealing with all the emails. So okay. Anybody else? Does that sound like? I'm curious. Kind of how have folks been handling that with their kids? Like what kinds of conversations have they been having around those? Sure, your kids you don't have kids there now, and they may have been too young to have even had that conversation.
We've just been reinforcing tolerance and acceptance and things like that. And those things actually in my son's school are big on the radar, that they're constantly, we have a very diverse population in our school district here. And my kids, when they were in school, they were around every race from the beginning. So
that's great.
For them, it's very natural to be with people of color, of other from other countries, from other races and things like that. So for us, it's just reinforcing the same thing that they've always known, just acceptance and tolerance.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm glad that they've had that experience. Yeah. Before I left on my trip, I and when it happened, I'm like right there, well, actually I work with someone I'm on the board of a national parenting educator organization. And one of the people who also serves lived 3 blocks from where George Floyd was killed. And we talked to her the night it happened before it hit the news. And she was in shock and devastated and really traumatized by it. And I don't think we really grasped what had happened, because in some ways it was like, oh, another Black person, and until the next day. And of course, seeing how that's kind of rippled and gone worldwide and everything, how that has, what has come from that and how long it's lasted. And folks who were older, that, one lady was talking about how she remembered the Watts riots in the 60s. Someone else said that they remembered in LA, the LA riots in the 90s when it was Rodney King, when it happened to. And so I actually was it was the night before I was going to be leaving. So I was kind of getting into wrap up work and head into packing mode. And there was another conversation, and that was what they wanted to talk about. And I was kind of at that point, because I've been dealing so much with it, really just kind of needing to get a break. And I think it's healthy sometimes to take a break and have time to kind of regroup, deal with your grief, kind of deal with the trauma, because I think it traumatizes us all, even if you've not even made it through the video, just kind of knowing what it's still traumatic, I think. And I got a kind of sideways lecture on white privilege because I had the audacity to go on a vacation while this was going on, that I was sticking my head in the sand. And it was interesting because the people I went on vacation with, the person who's on disability is on disability as she was the dispatcher, the 911 dispatcher for the Columbus Police Department. And her whole family is in law enforcement, and her brother was, on riot duty in Columbus over the weekend when all this stuff was happening. And the other person that I went with, her daughter is married to a man who is biracial. Their children are biracial. And we had the conversation about how he passes for white, but his brother doesn't, and how different their lives are. Because one gets stopped at least 3 to 4 times a month. And so we had, I felt like I had this really diverse conversation. The person who lectured me is an advocate. I mean, that's what she does. She does advocacy. Her partner is in Chicago. Actually, she works for the Obama Foundation. And so it was the day that Obama was coming on to do his thing. And so she was telling us about that. So I've had all these various really different, diverse kinds of conversations about it from all different perspectives. And then the little girl makes her comment. So I just thought that if we can provide a safe space to have a respectful conversation and to focus on what can we do in terms of helping children appreciate diversity and, be willing to stand up, when they see, whether it's just bullying on the playground or something that's a broader sense of injustice, of raising the kind of kids who speak up or stand up for what's right. They don't have to get out there and protest. They don't have to put themselves in danger, but there's other ways that they can do that. So, so maybe we will explore that a little bit more then in 2 weeks. So let's just kind of do a quick check out and takeaway. And those of you who were here for the whole time, I will send you your certificate here when we get off. So how about sharing what was helpful, or what do you think you can take away from the conversation? And maybe make a commitment to yourself. What's like one thing that you will do maybe that relates to the conversation as you go away? Who wants to go first? I think we still have Lois and Michelle and Cheryl.
I'll go ahead.
Okay,
this
Lois.
is Lois. One thing I want to do is just do a little bit more thinking and reading, so that when I am on a Zoom call with the parents, that I have a good foundation that I'm coming from, and then just to really listen to hear where they are, because it seems like everyone's getting a lot of different information and no one's quite sure. And then I felt like it was a pretty good discussion about coming back in our group, but people were sharing from different perspectives, and then one parent felt like they weren't heard, and so then we kind of had to work through that. So I think the whole thing we need to talk about, and that for me as a person, just to make sure that I've thought it through before I open my mouth, and then just to keep listening, really listening, and pull people together. So
Yeah.
Hearing this today has been good for me.
Good. And Lois, I have like some really fun, like interactive activities you can do, and like from the parent educator perspective of things. So feel free to maybe connect with me afterwards if you want me to share any of those.
Okay.
Yeah, because that really kind of wasn't our topic today, but I'm more than happy to share that. And yeah, I think the key for us as facilitators of diverse groups is to provide a safe space and to be making sure that it's almost like we want to facilitate discussions in a way that everyone does feel heard and respected.
Right.
And the challenge is when someone says something really maybe outrageous or inflammatory or whatever, that's where we've got to be able to quickly respond in a way that doesn't invalidate or insult or offend or whatever the person, but also make sure that what they said doesn't insult and offend others. So yeah.
There's always that dance.
Yes, exactly. So great. We'll come back in a couple of weeks. And Michelle, how about you, or Cheryl? I think actually Cheryl said she had to take off for a meeting. Michelle, how about you? I'll let you have the last word.
I just would like to find a way to broaden the understanding of what's going on, I guess. And I'm not sure that I'm the person to do that, or I'm not sure how to accomplish that, but just so that people understand the reasons behind suggested rules. They're not rules, they're not things you have to do, but I wish that more people would understand the benefit to everybody for doing that. And I maybe it's gotten to be too much of a me society. I don't know.
I don't know that either. I know.
I just don't know, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know where we're at with that, but I just wish that there would be a greater understanding and appreciation for the reasons behind everything. And I'm not sure how to share that more widely. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, because it's not that someone's trying to take away anyone's rights. We're just trying to watch out for each other.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And I think there's too much of that, thinking that, there's a thumb on us or something, and that's not the reason behind it. So, yeah,
and that's where people can interpret the same action in more than one way, because it always goes through their filters. And so if somebody has a filter, that no one's going to tell me what to do. They will interpret things that is not someone telling them what to do in a way that they take it that it is and react that way.
Yes, and I don't think that it's easy. You can't change some of those filters. They're not flexible. So there's just has to be an understanding, but that's even difficult. So
Right. And so we can't make other people change, but we can then choose what we're going to do based on what we're seeing, which is kind of brings us full circle to what we were talking about today. Yep.
Yep.
That was a great way to kind of end things. A great comment there. So thank you, Michelle, for still tuning in to us while you were still writing. and staying on for the conversation. Lois, thank you for your input as a fellow parenting educator. Cheryl, thank you for your input. I look forward to seeing you all in a couple of weeks. If I can catch some of the first publicity, I will update it and say that of what our topic will be. So, and it's just 2 weeks. It is a different link though. Are you all on my mailing list? Do you all know how to get registered for the other one? Go to Facebook and type, it's at Foster Parents Tool Shop. Some of you might already be seeing that because I'm hearing some of your foster parents. Oh, you know what? If you go back to Parents Tool Shop and do the event for this, I think actually maybe both links are there. So, or feel free, my email, you can just send an email. I'll get it at info@parentstoolshop.com. If you need the link to register for the ones on the second one that's on the 4th Tuesdays, let me know and I'll send you a link for that. Or if you just want to hang on a second, I can pop it in. So thank you, everybody. Have a great day, and I hope to talk to you again in a couple of weeks or next month. Bye now.